Hi, I'm Jim Knotts, President and CEO of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Welcome to today's virtual reading of the names. 2022 marks the 40th anniversary of the dedication of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. As part of our commemoration, we'll host an in-person reading of the names at the wall from November 7th through 10th, 2022, when all 58,281 names on the wall will be read aloud. In the lead up to that event, we'll be reading names each day online while sharing the photos of these heroes. For our daily virtual reading, the names of the service members will be read by month and day of death between the years 1956 and 1975 in alphabetical order for the given day. We apologize in advance for any mispronunciations. Know that our readers are doing their best to honor these service members. We hope you'll listen and watch each day and share with others as we remember and honor those who gave their lives during the Vietnam War.
Frank David Adams, Charles Wesley Adams, Tony Lee Bakke, Charles Dennis Bartlett, Ronald Lee Belknap, Clifton E. Bennett, Frank Lee Blevins, Stephen Craig Brees, James Ronald Brown, Roy Otis Buchanan, Judge Burroughs Jr., Ronald Dean Busby, Horry Julius Buskey, Richard James Cowlin, Donald Priester Candler, Jose Jaime Castillo, Peter Charley, Lee Tilson Clark, David Leroy Clymer, Brian J. Clune, Robert Wayne Cooper, Donald Lee Corbin, Gary Wayne Cox, Robert Lynn Dance, James Donald Davenport, Pedro D. Herrera, Norman E. DeCaro Jr., Eddie Dismaya Jr., Bruce Allen Emick, Thomas Gordon Edgren, James Merton Edwards, Earl Kent Eichbauer, Reese Correnti Elia Jr., James Herbert Fife Jr., Melvin Franklin Floyd, Dwight Dunnard Foster, Anthony L. Franks, John Richard Frayling Jr., Bobby Ray Gardner, Harry Garrigus, Gerald Peter Gatewood, Ernest Gibson, Lawrence Herbert Goldberg, Dennis Joseph Green, Charles Richard Green, Martin Steve Gruber Jr., David Conrad Hampton, Benjamin Neil Hamrick, Thomas Maurice Hankins, Grady Herschel Harris, Louis Elmer Hockey, Martus Leon Haynes, Gary Lee Higbee, Herbert E. Ilgen Fritz Jr., William Samuel Irby, Richard V. Ives, Phillips H. Izzard Jr., John Andrew Jablonski, Andy Johnson Jr., Charles A. Jones, Douglas Wayne Jones, Elias Castro Hirado Jr., Jimmy Eugene Keith, John Alda Kemp,
John William Kishilevsky, Robert Ivan Klutwick, John Jordan Colts, Otto Commandant, David Neil Larson, Dickie Lynn Leach, James Alexander Leahy, Robert Thomas Lohman, James Francis Lucas, Sotorios Milto Margaritas, Vernal Glenn Martin, Luis Alberto Massa, Samuel Judson Mathis, George Edward Matushak, Melvin Lloyd MacArthur, Lonzo O. McDonald, Richard Woods Meehan, Louis Dayton Moles, Dwight Edgar Mooney, Leonard Lee Moore, John Lee Moreland, Herbert Sterling Murph, Zachary Philip New, Leslie David Nichols, Richard John Nolden, Ronald Lee Noldner, Eric Reinhard Nordman, Richard Ralph Olson, John Paul Harris Olt, Alfredo Ostolaza Maldonado, Richard Arthur Ovate, Michael Harris Painter, Mark Edward Parker, Manuel Francisco Parra, George Washington Pierce, Henry Lee Pippin, Derek Boyd Pope, Richard William Power, Charles Ray Powers, Alan John Pretner, Stanley Robert Riola, Calvin Wetzel Ramsey, Carroll Edward Raymer, Jr., Willie Michael Rhodes, Robert Thomas Rice, Jr., Leonard Wade Roberson, Sammy Pina Rodriguez, Richard W. Roy, Herbert Cleveland Samples, Paul Ross Savacool, Jr., William Manuel Scanlon, Richard Allen Schaff, Dennis Richard Schmidt, Robert James Scott, Dwayne Nevada Scoden, Gary David Sangstock, Freddie Michael Sherlin, Andrew Marco Sherman, Donald Anker Sherrod, John Henry Shetters, Gerald Shields Simons, Arvil Ray Smart, Joel Nabane Smith, Frederick Stafford,
Clarence E. Tackett, Bradley Haynes Tate, Leslie John Tackettmeyer, Myron Thompson, David Lewis Thorpe, Joseph Patrick Toomey, Alan Dale Turcano, Jesse James Tyler, Larry Jerome Tyler, George Thomas Verdenek, Robert A. von Biskopfhausen, William Wayman Walker, Daniel Stephen Walco, Charles Milton Walling, James Michael Walsh, Wayne Emmerich Walsh, Jr., John Brady Walters, James Joseph Wiest, Claude Frederick Weiderman, Jack Allen Welch, William Clemens Wycus, Stephen Earl Wildman, Poindexter E. Williams, James B. Wilst, Jr., Eugene Merle Woodson, Patrick Edward Wynn,